The Big 12 disrespect has already started, ironically enough, on a weekend where we get to watch the Big 12 take over the NFL playoffs. And whether you're excited to cheer on Mason Rudolph Warriors, slightly perplexed about the hiring of Paul Randolph, we're here to cover all of it.
You are Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma State Cowboys, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Howdy, y'all, and hello, all. Welcome back to Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily stop for all things Cowboy and Cowgirl related. My name is Cody Stovall, and I want to thank you kindly for stopping by. We're available on all of your podcasting platforms, visually as well on YouTube. Find me personally on Twitter at AllDayOState. Today, we are partially brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment matter more, because right now, our new customers get $150 back in bonus bets off of any $5 money line bet. Go to FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started today. As we say goodbye, and a big, big shout out to the Cowboy legend, Greg Richmond, we get to now welcome in new defensive line coach, Paul Randolph. Paul Randolph is a savant in a multitude of areas. And I'll tell you one thing, if your D-line coach doesn't write the daggone books on how to do stuff, then I bet my D-line coach is better than yours. And that is the case. Guys, right now, you can go to CoachTube, all right, and you can purchase Coach Paul Randolph's book and audio book and video referencing on his philosophies and how to break everything down from alignment to stance, what keys, how to get off properly, how to look through progressions, how to read progressions while going through the pass rush, how to block destruction, swipe, arm and hand placements, and much more. You can go buy that right now for $19.99, and that'll probably give you a pretty good indication on what Coach Paul Randolph is looking to accomplish in Stillwater, Oklahoma. One of the biggest things that has to be brought up at the very beginning is, well, this isn't a 3-3-5 guy. Paul Randolph is a 4-2-5 guy, which is what was most recently ran at Indiana. But what is a 3-3-5? Stay with me now. It's the 4-2-5 with an extra stand-up dude, or a dude that can go ahead and put his hand in the dirt when need be. To be able to pull this off, you got to have that Von Miller style of guy. We have that in Colin Oliver. And now whenever you look at this move, let's cover a little bit of Coach Paul Randolph's ascension to where he is now. But real quick, I got to mention, statistically speaking, we covered the other day that when you look at forced fumbles and fumbles recovered and tackles for loss and sacks and things of that nature, Oklahoma State statistically didn't have a huge discrepancy in those categories from 2021 to 2023. There's a drop-off in 2022, which was Greg Richmond really just kind of cutting his teeth. But it's the darned if you do, darned if you don't scenario. The upside to returning 20 and 22 starters is life is going to be fairly simplistic. The downside to returning 20 and 22 starters is the expectation goes up exponentially. The expectation now is to win and win a lot of games convincingly. The reason for the departure of Greg Richmond, which was definitely amicable, was the fact that he gave up 166 yards a game. Robert Allen put this little stat up earlier, and it does kind of help summarize why we're in this predicament. When you're giving up 167 yards a game and 4.6 yards per play, we knew that there was games that we leaked like a sieve in the back end, and part of that is because of the lack of disruption up front. The lack of disruption up front was something that we had been discussing all season. We had 27 sacks, which is pretty doggone good. But only 11 of those were defensive linemen. And Nathan Latu is gone. Anthony Goodlow is gone. We get Colin Clay back. Obviously, we get Xavier Ross back. We like the emergence of Deshaun Brown, Jaleel Johnson, but you got to do more. So the objective here is to do more, not just dominate an AO, right? Not just strictly dominating an area of operation to free it up for the guys on the back end. From that perspective, Coach Greg Richmond did a pretty decent job, which is precisely why Nick Martin was able to catapult himself statistically to being the number one linebacker in the Big 12. But if the defensive line was able to do just a little bit more, then that 27 sacks turns into 31 sacks, turns into 35 sacks. Then you start putting yourself in the top 25 in the country, which our new coach, Paul Randolph, has done a multitude of times. Once again, this is an amicable separation because Coach Greg Richmond understands the lay of the land and we have to win. We got to win right now. And we have the opportunity to bring somebody in a Paul Randolph that has so much experience. So let's shift into Coach Randolph. Well, Coach Randolph has been doing the daggone thing for quite some time. The 57-year-old has 24 years of experience, 21 of those at the defensive line. He's been a part of 17 bowl games. Obviously, the collegiate level is something that means a lot to him. Previously, before Indiana, he was at Texas Tech. And the reason that this matters to us is because we as Oklahoma State fans are very well aware that Texas Tech was a what? An offensive prowess. Their defensive capabilities were putrid, to say it the best. But we all remember Broderick Washington coming out of absolutely nowhere. We all remember Eli Howard a few years back getting into the backfields hot and heavy in the Big 12, and us all wondering, where did this random Texas Tech defense come from? That led into Broderick Washington being a fifth-round selection by the Baltimore Ravens. He has so many ties that it's absolutely preposterous. And that's why he helped Texas Tech get to number 31 in the country in tackles for loss very early on. Before that, he was at Memphis. And the Memphis Tigers played in 3 bowl games. They won 26 games in such a short time span. They also won 2 American West Division titles. In that time, Memphis created 81 takeaways, which was number 4 in America. And they were 5th in the country in takeaways 2016. They were tied for 3rd in the country in takeaways 2017, 31. If you're getting over 31 takeaways, you're winning the turnover battle, which means you're usually winning a lot of games. 28 of those 60 takeaways were fumble recoveries, which also put Memphis top 5 in the country. Before that, he was the associate athletic director for Arizona State after spending a few years as the defensive lines coach and the co-defensive coordinator. While they were at Arizona State, guys, I know Arizona State hasn't been good. We don't really remember Arizona State for being very good, but they were. They went 19-8 in the Pac-12 under his time. They recorded back-to-back 10-win seasons in 2013 and 2014, including a 14-4 record. During that time, he produced 5 all Pac-12 linemen. Will Sutton was a consensus All-American and a 2-time Pac-12 Defensive Player of the Year. He was the first consensus All-American for Arizona State since 2007. He became the 3rd defensive lineman in Pac-12 history to be named the Defensive Player of the Year in consecutive years. 4 of the 5 all-league selections were either drafted or signed to NFL contracts. Arizona State also led the nation in tackles for loss per game. They were averaging 9 tackles for loss a game. They were 2nd in the country in sacks per game at 4. They were top 20 in both categories in 2013 and 2014. He cut his teeth very early on, right? Just kind of coming up through the ranks, Tennessee Martin, where he's an alum. He had a very successful CFL career, and then he goes to the front office style stuff as well. They win a couple Grey Cups, which is the equivalent of a Super Bowl to them. Then Valdosta State, then Illinois State, University of Toledo. Then he steps it up a notch, West Virginia. Then he goes to Alabama. And while he was at Alabama, they were number one in the country in several defensive categories. And he was named top 25 top recruiters in the country when he was at Alabama. This is a really good get for Oklahoma State. And like I said, if the dude's out here writing books on how it's supposed to be done, then he's probably a pretty good get. And if he's top 25 best recruiters in the country while at Alabama, yeah, this is a good thing. And it just goes to show that there is definitely importance in the coaching staff right now to win in 2024. They know that this is a must-win season. And this is a really good sign of them not only understanding that, but embracing it as well. Casey Dunn, that's a different story. That's a different story. And you know what? It's not the story for segment 2. We get to talk about some of the Big 12 craziness coming out. But before we do that, we get to talk about hammering the over, right? Here on the Hammer the Over Club, where we hammered the over on 10 wins and we hammered the over on a 1,500-yard back. With FanDuel, you too can hammer the over. Right now, our new customers get $150 back in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $150 back, y'all. Win or lose in bonus bets. The app is safe, secure, and super easy to use. There's so many different ways to bet, whether it be same-game parlays, over, under, player props, Super Bowl, division title, Heisman, and more by going to FanDuel.com/lockedon. Again, go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make your first bet your best bet today with FanDuel, the official partner of the NFL. So whenever you have conversations about returning a plethora of starters for any roster, you should automatically assume that they're going to be better or at least as good. Now, I don't know very many places and or metrics where you can be this good, but then also go backwards. And I saw a poll put out yesterday that had the 2024 Oklahoma State Cowboys preseason number 7 in the Big 12. Guys, there's 3 teams that return over 85% of the roster. Kansas, Oklahoma State, and Arizona. Who else could you potentially throw in that top mix and it just makes sense? Well, then maybe a Utah, then maybe a K-State. In no way, shape, or form should all those teams and Iowa State be ahead of Oklahoma State, who does definitely return over 85% of its roster, who does also definitely return 20 of 22 starters, 21 of 22 if you want to factor in Lyric Rawls to that equation. So how can you return 21 of 22 dudes off of a 10-win team and be projected to go from second place without Texas to 7th place? Somebody somewhere that knows more than myself, make that make sense to me, please. From a Big 12 slant, yeah, the disrespect, we have heard it forever. It doesn't always make sense, which we're about to get to in segment 3. But does Iowa State return the bulk of everybody they need? No. Utah's missing 90% of its secondary. Arizona is legitimate. and they legitimately return almost as many dudes as we do. So sure, that one makes sense. But what are we doing? I'll tell you one thing, though. We're slightly selfish over here on this channel. And selfishly, I hope that it does remain this way. It is preposterous for any other publications to continue to matriculate out information that says Oklahoma State's going to be 7th. I mean, but we like it to money, honey. So if this is going to be a common, right, a common theme, then bring it on. We're going to cover how disrespectful it is. We're going to cover how ridiculous it is, but we're also going to cover how these opportunities traditionally link us all up with the ability to make more money. And that's essentially what life's about. But again, it's not like you can even just like dissect pieces of, oh, well, this guy's returning over here on this side of the ball, and that guy's returning over here on that side of the ball. How many offensive linemen are on the field? 5. How many starting Division I, Power 5, Big 12 offensive linemen do we have returning? 7, with the addition of Isaiah Glass coming over from Arizona State. 7 starting offensive linemen back. Your starting quarterback's back. Your backup quarterback's back. Your backup's backup quarterback's back. And the new 4-star style quarterback is coming in. You return so many pieces off of your defensive line that we had just discussed. Plus, you also bring in Obi Zegbo. We've talked 100,000 times about how our secondary and safety room yesterday or last season were ridiculously young. We've also talked about how we get pretty much every single one of them back. We did lose a backup corner in DJ McKinney. Hats off to Colorado. I think it's a great get. I think we're all going to cheer him on every single game but one. So how can you return Xavier Ross, Justin Kirkland, Colin Clay, Deshaun Brown, Jaleel Johnson, and then not take into consideration that this stuff matters? How do you return Lyric Rawls, Cam Epps, Kendall Daniels, Nick Martin, Jeff Robertson, and then Colin Oliver on top of Cam Smith and not get excited? Stats lives matter. Production should matter. When you produce a 10-win season, how does it make any sense to peg them as 7th? It's just kind of a good thing from a monetary perspective. I know words are hard for me. Sorry, a monetary perspective. But it's a difficult pill to swallow simply because of the fact that we know all of this information. So how does everybody else not know? And if the people who do know, that's why I need an explanation. How can somebody look at a 10-win team that returns almost 90% of its roster and 21 of 22 starters get worse? Again, if you want to make an argument that Arizona is going to come in better, sure, you can make that argument. If you want to make the argument that KU is coming in with almost as many returning players and starters as we do, so they should be up there, yeah, you should make that argument. But there's not an argument for Iowa State. There's not an argument yet for K-State. There's not an argument for Utah. Cam Rising's good, but he's not. Jalen Daniels good. Guys, let me know down in the comments section if I'm crazy. I mean, I might be. I've been called worse. But you got to download the Gametime app if you haven't yet. We're about to discuss the NFL takeover on behalf of the Big 12. But before we do, you have to make sure that you have the Gametime app already downloaded. Do it now. You don't have to worry about stressing anymore. You don't have to worry about planning for weeks in advance anymore. With Gametime tickets, it's the fastest and easiest way for you to buy tickets for sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. They've got killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, and the best part is the best price guarantee, which takes all of the guesswork out of the equation for you. Not to mention, you get to see the view of the seat before you buy. So there's no crazy hanky-panky about buying one section, showing up, and getting stuck in another. Don't have to worry about that. Download the Gametime app today. Create an account and use the code LOCKEDON, one word, for $20 off your purchase. Terms apply. Again, create that account and redeem that code. LOCKEDON, LOCKEDON, for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. The Big 12 catches a bad rap quite often. And then there's programs like this one and many others that have to then come to the defense of the Big 12. Well, sometimes some things pop up that allow the proof to be in the pudding, as they say. And right now, when you look at the NFL playoffs, almost 40% of the entire quarterback picture is all Big 12. It's all Big 12 quarterbacks. You know, the conference that's not even close to the SEC, the same conference that's not even in the same hemisphere as the Big Ten, the same conference that some crazy wackos out there want to pretend isn't light years above the ACC, has 35.74% of your starting quarterbacks in the NFL playoffs. But the Big 12's no good, right? The Big 12 is a second-class citizen, right? Because that's just quarterbacks. We've had several discussions about the Oklahoma State players represented, like Malcolm Rodriguez with the Lions. We've talked about Josh Seals with the Eagles. We've talked about, obviously, the Steelers with both Mason Rudolph and Jalen Warren. We've talked about the Ravens with both Justice Hill and Tyler Wallace. We've talked about the Dolphins with both Emmanuel Ogbah and Tyreek Hill. We haven't talked enough about the Rams, who have Jason Taylor II rocking some orange. We haven't talked enough about, and let me know, guys, in the comment section, am I the only one here that is really craving, honestly, a Baker Mayfield, Mason Rudolph redemption shot? Because for those who don't know, Mason Rudolph and Baker Mayfield put up some of the most legendary games in Big 12 history, in all college football history. Statistically, those two guys just by themselves were putting up 1,000 yards. Just those two dudes. Those were the bedlams that we fell in love with. And to be honest with you, Baker always got Mason. Just a little bit. So I kind of want a little bit of Mason's redemption tour. Somebody make sure that everybody in the country that talks down on the Big 12 is very well aware that almost 40% of the NFL playoffs is nothing but Big 12 quarterbacks. And then again, almost every other roster has Cowboys on it. So this is a wonderful time to be an Oklahoma State fan. And realistically, it's a great time to be a Big 12 fan. Whether you're part of the old Big 12, the new Big 12, or the new Big 12, there's a lot to celebrate. There's a lot to get behind. One of those things not to get behind, though, is the idea, the fallacy of ridiculousness that Oklahoma State's going to go from number 2 to number 7 when they return everybody. Help me. Help you. If you know the reasoning behind this, let me know. Got to give another shout out. There's crazy, wild, wacky weather going on. So if the men's basketball team does, in fact, make it to the Hilton Coliseum to play Iowa State Good luck. God bless. Of course, go Pokes. Travel safe. And that's all we're going to have for this one right here. Go take down the Cyclones, please, fellas. Otherwise, we can spread this out. We need to fill Gallagher-Iba Arena for Jase Hoyt and the Cowgirls. Mark your calendars, February 3rd. We have Bedlam inside Gallagher-Iba Arena. January 12th, 2008, we sold out Gallagher-Iba Arena. 13,611 people showed up for a women's Bedlam basketball. So it's been done before, so we can do it again. And Jase Hoyt and this Cowgirls team, they deserve it. All righty, y'all. So we're going to have. You know the drill. I love you. As always, God bless. Go Pokes. Thank you for tuning in to make this your first listen here on Locked On Oklahoma State. You could be anywhere. So happy you choose to be here. Go hit the like, share, comment, subscribe for all my YouTube folks out here. My podcasting peoples, you know I love you. My foundation, go leave a review. Go hit them stars. All right, y'all. Later, taters.